Welcome back to another episode of AgWarriors. Super lucky to have Kevin Berg join us today. Now, Kevin is president, CEO, probably dishwasher, everything for First Manufacturing as well as Copperhead Ag.
Correct.
Right. So, Kevin, I asked you to come and be a part of this. You were like, well, I don't know, try it. Right? You ready for this?
Yeah, let's
see what happens. So,
talk about it.
The point to this podcast is to tell some cool stories and entertain some people, but tell some stories. We called it Ag Warriors because we felt like nothing really ever comes easy. And manufacturing, building businesses certainly isn't easy. It's kind of a battle. And so we wanted to talk about warriors, people that have battled and won and still battle, and because I think we're always grinding and battling.
That's true. Nothing has ever come easy, especially early on. You go through different stages of the business where you think you're clicking right along, and then growth or things happen that present new challenges all the time. And in order to continue and excel, a guy has to just accept change and accept that you're going to be changing and improving things and doing things differently than you did yesterday all the time.
Constantly changing. So we picked this location in First Manufacturing specifically because that machine there, that was your first one.
That is the first machine. That machine is actually, I bought it back in 2003, and it happened to be
20 years old.
It sat in a warehouse for 10 years. I knew one of the sales reps that knew this machine was back there. So it was 10 years old by the time I got it. Okay. So that machine is actually 30 years old, and we still use it from time to time to do odds and ends type work. But I started with one semi-automated CNC machine back in 2003. Our first customer was a company called Jack First Gun Shop, and they specialize in making obsolete gun parts. That happens to also be my grandfather-in-law and my first banker. So First Manufacturing came about because Jack First was the owner of First Manufacturing, Jack First Gun Shop, and he lent us $17,000 to get started, and that's how.
So you called it First Manufacturing, kind of in honor
Correct.
of Jack First.
Yep.
And he believed in how was that conversation? Because oftentimes for entrepreneurs it's hard. Like you got nothing. How did you go and say, hey, look, I need 17 grand to your grandpa-in-law? This isn't even your grandpa. This is Emily's grandpa. Am I
correct? Yes.
Doing that right? And how was that conversation?
It was a pretty easy one. I did work at the gun shop while I was going to college, making obsolete gun parts in the back. They have a small tool shop, and he saw the kind of work that I could do, and just knew that I had a passion for manufacturing and machining since the first chip was made back when I was going to college. So it was a pretty easy sell, and he's a big proponent of helping people start businesses and just get things going. So. I remember the first job I ran on this particular machine. It was a rather difficult part and probably a little bit too much for this, but I think I made about $5 an hour.
Is that what it was?
When the first job was done, and I didn't really know how this was going to go, but
If $5 an hour takes a long time to pay back that $17,000.
It did.
So did you have any special nicknames for this machine, or was like Big Blue or nothing like that, or just?
Nope, it was
piece of shit.
It was the fanciest thing I had to work with, so we made it work.
No, that's awesome. So First Manufacturing, because obviously people know about Copperhead Ag. That's kind of come out of nowhere over the last 13 years, I think, is when you guys started coming up with that. But First Manufacturing, that's a lot longer than that. And where did that come from? I mean, you've got a crazy cool story that we've never talked about, as far as manufacturing, farming, inventor. So let's start with the manufacturing. How did you decide to do that, and when did that start? Is it just to make the obsolete gun parts?
I've just always had a passion for, I guess, fixing things, making things. Grew up on a farm. We were always fixing and tinkering with things, and then.
So your dad farmed?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep. So then I went to college in the engineering program, and I worked at in the mechanical engineering lab, and that's where I made my first chip. Was on a similar machine to this, and like I said, from then and there, I knew that's what I wanted to do. And we even when my wife and I were still in college, we did our one of our TechCom papers on how to start a business, and it was how to start a machine shop. So this has been in the works for years and years and years, and we finally found an opportunity to get started. And with the help of him, not only to supply us with or loan us the money to get started, but obviously you got to have the work to
right. So
to make it happen.
He gave you a couple purchase orders to get you started.
Yep.
So you met Emily. Did you date Emily in high school? Like
in college.
In college, you met her at college.
Correct.
And did she do all your papers and everything for you? Or?
She helped get all the paperwork in line to get all the financing, and has always done more of the back end. I'm more the
creator,
the visionary creator type person, and she always took care of the back end with all the paperwork, and that's.
So you guys put a paper together in college and said, this is how we would start a machine shop, and then you just said, you know what, let's just go do it.
We just had to wait to a certain jumping off point, and we finally
what did you do
made it
before
happen.
you were doing that?
So I worked as a test engineer at a computer hardware component manufacturer for about a year and a half, and then we actually moved out to California for about 3.5 years.
California?
Yep, we lived in Sacramento area.
Doing what?
I was working for a carbon fiber filament winding shop.
Wow.
And that's where I really got learned a lot more about the machining, and kind of got in on the ground level. It was a buddy of mine in college. I went to work for his family, and kind of got in on the ground level, and we purchased various pieces of CNC equipment. I had to learn how to do the modeling, the programming. We would build it, weld it.
For each machine as you were adding it.
And we would build custom machines to make the carbon fiber
oh, wow.
Pieces also.
So did you get an engineering degree? Or
yes.
Yeah,
yep.
So that you...
Yep. Both Emily and I have mechanical engineering degrees.
Emily has one too,
Correct.
Even though she runs more on the back end. So do you ever bring her in to talk engineering because of that?
Not so much. It's just she doesn't have much interest in it, but she is continually brought in for project management.
So, yeah, of course, that would make perfect sense. So what was the difference like moving to California? As far as, not as manufacturing, just in life in general. Like you grew up in South Dakota, right?
Yeah, I mean, we always knew we would come back, but I wanted to. My wife was originally from Southern California, but I always wanted to live somewhere other than the Midwest, and so that opportunity came along, and it was an absolute blast. I mean,
California back when you were there is a little different than California today.
It is. I wouldn't say California was so much of a blast, but the work that we were doing was cutting edge, and it was just, it was a lot of fun.
So that probably really set the stage for what was to come for you in First Manufacturing when you got back here.
Yeah, so when we came back, I actually went to work for a company that makes fluid handling products, and we made a lot of the end of the hose applicator that in the factory that I worked at, and to be honest, it was two extremes, right? I worked for a small family business, and then went to more of a corporate business, and they knew how to manufacture, and a lot of what the processes and things that we do here in our shop now is because of that experience.
Wow.
Working back here.
So that kind of all built towards this. So that must have been, so if you were 3.5 years in California, so after you graduated, what were you, about 5 years before you took your business plan from college and said, let's go? Is that about right?
Yep.
So started off making gun parts. Now, how did you, because you make a lot of things now.
Yeah, we make, of course, we supply Copperhead Ag with the majority of the components that get sold through there, but we probably have another 75 customers that we do work for. One of them is my prior employer. We do work for those guys. Anything from
So your prior employer doing the hose fittings and stuff like that?
it's more fluid housings and nozzles and some fittings.
So you left, started your own place, and now you provide them with stuff.
Correct.
That's kind of cool.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. We had a great relationship. I worked there part-time for about 3 or 4 months during the transition, and it was a great.
Have they been a client ever since? Like right away, they were like, "Here, we'll give you."
Actually, it wasn't until we acquired another machine shop about 4 years ago, and we also worked closely together at Graco.
Yep.
And so he had the contacts at Graco, and he was doing the majority of their work for them. And then when we acquired them,
So kind of full circle moment there.
Yep.
So how many different products does First Manufacturing make? Do you have a ballpark?
hundreds and hundreds, probably. Over the years, we've made several thousand different
Wow.
types of parts.
And how many different machines do you have? Because you didn't start. Did you start? You didn't start in this building.
No, I worked out of my garage.
Yeah, right.
Like a lot
that
of
was
people,
that was in the garage to
correct.
start.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. There was only certain hours of the night I could run it because it actually backed up to the bedroom wall. So we had to.
You had an agreement of when you could and couldn't run the
Right.
machine.
Right. Yeah. I'd get a call. A lot of times 12:30, 1 o'clock in the morning. Can you please stop? I need to go to bed. But we made it work. So now we have. I think we have 22 or 23 CNC machines, anywhere from 4-axis horizontal machining to a 5-axis machine over there. We've got Swiss turning, lathes with live tooling, and we have a full automated pallet system in another one of our shops that can run unattended. So we've come a little ways since the.
Can you run every machine in the shop?
I cannot.
Cannot.
I cannot.
Right.
I used to, but not
No,
anymore.
no time.
Nope.
So, is the manufacturing what excites you, or is it coming up with the way to manufacture that excites you? Which is like, or is it kind of a little bit of everything?
What we really excel at is being able to bring a part in, discuss it with the designers or the guys that come up with the ideas to make sure that we can make it as efficiently as possible, and then just coming up with the process to do it. That's what excites me.
That's where First is just. That's what it's good at. That's the unique value that you add.
Yeah, and I mean we pretty much have the latest technology in machining, so I mean we can compete on multiple levels, and it's just fun working with customers and just delivering the product they want when they want it, and making sure it's right.
How does First compare just in the state of South Dakota? Because we're in Humboldt, South Dakota right now, population 587, right? With 22 cutting edge, like this is not a little operation. This is not mom and pop working in the garage anymore. In the state of South Dakota, how many other manufacturing facilities? I know South Dakota has a ton, but would you say compared to you guys or can do what you do?
We're probably, well, for sure in the top 10. I'd say we're probably closer to the top 5.
Wow.
Shops in South Dakota.
And now if you want to work till 12:30 or 1, you don't have to wait. Emily's not calling to say, hey, get out of the shop. Like, I need to go to sleep.
Right, yeah.
Right, a little different. So let's pivot a little bit. So that's the manufacturing, started in a shop. Now, Copperhead Ag's been a big part of your story because you went back and started farming at some point. Let's maybe talk about that because that's part of the Copperhead Ag story. When did you go back and start farming?
It wasn't until probably about 4 or 5 years ago, but when I came back from California, then I was obviously involved with the farm again, helping out when I could. So that would have been back in 2006, 2007.
So your dad was still farming full time at that time. You were on the farm running the planter. What'd you do on the farm?
I did most tillage work.
Okay.
Yeah, Dad always ran the planter.
Dad ran the planter.
Yep.
You did the tilling.
Yep.
Who ran the combine?
Dad.
You ran the grain cart.
Yeah, we hauled the grain away.
Right.
Yep.
So back on the farm, and then tell me about the furrow cruiser because I spent a little time talking to Jake, just of his memories of that first year when you approached him And it was pretty funny with the way he told it. How Emily's like, you need to go talk to Kevin, and Kevin you showed him the furrow cruiser, and he was like, that's the plan, like. And he said it was within an hour of going to the first farm show that you guys were looking at each other saying, oh my, but you already knew.
Yeah, so we finally moved out of the garage. We got a big contract, and we moved in this building.
Into this building?
Correct. In about 2008, I believe it was. And of course, we had the financial collapse. And the customer that we were doing business for went down, oh God, probably about 20% of the projected volume that they were doing.
Right after you move into the building.
Yeah.
So would you say that's the first big battle that First had and that Kevin had?
That was the one everybody should go through early on in business.
Right.
It taught us so much, and maybe to a fault, but it just really teaches you the importance of making sure you have enough working capital to keep rolling. So yeah, the market fell apart. We were not super busy, and we were basically doing anything to keep the lights on at that point. And then the furrow cruiser opportunity walked in the door, and we were able to spend time on it, build prototypes, test 2 or 3 different designs in the first spring, and probably do years worth of development within a very short amount of time
because of the collapse. So it just was perfect,
Right.
Perfect storm of timing right then.
Yeah, because to be honest, I mean, we probably wouldn't even looked at it if we would have been busy with our other stuff.
So Todd Trevine, right? There's the whole Trevine family.
Yep.
But they were testing this. Like, how did it come about? Was it you and Todd? Like, I don't even know the whole story about that. I just know that it was that you guys are the owners of Copperhead and the inventors of this. Who's on the pad? Like, how does that
So
work?
they
Can we
brought
even
in,
talk about that? Are we allowed to talk about that?
They brought in a different style closing wheel that did clip in to the existing hubs and bearings.
Yep.
And then there was another closing wheel that was kind of coming onto the market, and I guess I just started doing some research and basically just kind of found that happy medium that everybody was looking for. We didn't get it right the first time, but
How many iterations? How many times?
so we're probably on our 5th iteration, and that's the wheel we've been selling for the last about 12 years, I suppose. And we went through 4 early on, and then the last one was to get rid of the 4-piece and go to the single
Right.
molded UHMW closing wheel.
So when you guys are testing these and going through it, because of Trevine's farm, and obviously your dad's farming at that point, are you testing these on the farm?
Correct.
And
Yep.
what was it like when you knew? Because I think that's the part that, like that, oh shit, we're on to something now. When was that?
It was, well, we knew we had something when we first tried it, but what happened is we sold to quite a few of the neighboring farmers, and they loved them, and then we had other farmers like in our area over here try them, and then we had agronomists come and look and said, guys would try a couple rows.
Yep.
And then the agronomist would see
What
what
are
a
you
difference
doing?
it was making, and they said, stop the planter, go get
Yep.
the rest of them before you plant anymore. And then we had another consultant that's been working in the industry for a very long time, latched onto them, and then that's the type of thing that gives you confidence to.
And at this point, they're patented because you weren't
Correct.
putting them out there before you'd patent them. You're
Correct.
like, so I'm talking before that. Like when you were on your farm, you're like, shit, we need to patent this. This is going to be really big. Do you remember that moment, or was it just kind of like, huh? This might
It
work.
wasn't like an aha moment. It was like, ah, shit, I suppose we should patent this.
Right.
So we did.
And then the farmers started trying it. Guys are wanting them, etc.
Yep.
And then you decided to go to farm shows.
Correct. So I started going to farm shows with a 1 corn planter unit in the back of a 1997 Accord and some literature, and that's how we got started.
So the first farm show, if I know the story, was Farm Progress Show USA. Is that right?
Actually, the first actual farm show was out in Wisconsin. It was the Wisconsin Farm Tech Days.
Okay. In a Honda Accord. How big was the booth?
It was 10 by 10.
10 by 10
Yep.
in a tent.
In a tent, sweating our ass off.
Who went?
It was myself and another partner from the Trevine family.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you guys just went and said, hey, let's go see what happens.
Yeah, it was kind of a crash and burn on the first show. I made my first sale at the Redwood Farm Show.
Farm Fest. Yeah, just happened a couple weeks ago too.
Correct. Yeah, I remember.
So Wisconsin, you didn't sell anything?
No.
What do you mean it was a crash and burn? Nobody knew what you were talking about?
Yeah, I mean, we were just figuring it out. We didn't know how to sell them. We're figuring it out.
Yeah.
And then, the first real sale came at the Farm Fest, and I remember shaking, filling out that first order form because I had no idea what the hell I was doing.
Right.
So
you're like, sweet, we sold a couple.
Yeah.
How many rows was the first sale? Do you remember?
I think it was 12 rows.
12 rows.
Yep.
And you were like, oh, yeah.
Yeah, and actually, prior to that, I'm trying to, it's been a long time ago, but Emily actually went out on the road, door to door to different dealerships, and
by herself.
By herself.
Any kids in the picture at this point? Yeah, there would have been for sure.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, we had 4 children at that point. So yeah,
did she take the kids with, or
drop them off at daycare and
right?
And then on the road she went. But she made our first big sale up in Jamestown, North Dakota, and
which dealer? Well, probably RDO now, right?
It's not RDO. It is
Gooseneck.
It's not a Gooseneck either. It's Jamestown Implement, the John Deere dealership up there.
Okay. What was that? What was that phone? Because I'm assuming there were cell phones. She probably called you.
That was the phone call that really kind of set us off and put us into motion.
Right.
So.
Saying, let's go.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So we basically started Copperhead with a credit card to buy a bunch of plastic, and the time to.
Didn't hit up Grandpa and said, hey, I need some more money. I got another idea.
Nope. We started it with a credit card and a bunch of UHMW plastic, and away we went.
That's so cool. And so, because Copperhead's now a leader, really, in the ag space, and not just planting, and not just the furrow cruiser. There's so many things that have come since then. What's that like? When did you make the decision that you were gonna really? Because now you've got first manufacturing, full bore, however many customers and machines at that time.
Yep.
And now we're gonna. Oh, you know what? I want to have another company going too. Let's do Copperhead Ag. What was the decision behind all of that?
It just kind of happened naturally. We just tried to stay ahead of it, and we had the manufacturing capacity to build inventory, and then we just kept turning dollars into more dollars, and just kept growing. And then we decided to hire our first sales guy, Jake, and that really helped us cover more ground, and just the Trevines got involved, helped out with farm shows, and we just kind of stair-stepped our way to a bigger coverage area.
Right.
And then along with that comes all the advertising and
marketing and all the fun things that you love.
All the fun stuff, yeah.
So along the way, you started acquiring some different companies, licensing some different patents. Mm-hmm. How do you put your farmer hat on, or do you put your manufacturing hat on, or which hat are you wearing when you see a product and you're like, okay, I think that's somebody that we should approach, that we want to buy, because we want them as part of the Copperhead Ag family?
We've got to believe in the product.
Yeah.
So the first one was the Estes concaves. We knew they worked. We understood the concept. We could get behind it. That's turned out very well. The next one was the RK products. Again, it's a simple solution for a real problem on the farm.
And they were still in their garage.
Correct.
And you were like, okay, this is a real simple, this is great. We bring this into first. We're going to do some crazy things with this.
Yeah, we were able to scale that thing up pretty quickly.
Significantly.
Utilizing our dealer network and so on, and then to have the ability to manufacture and keep up with that demand certainly helped us scale it as well.
Yeah.
So
pretty dramatically too. And now you've done Sunco. And is that the goal, is just to continue to find innovative products that you feel like with your experience, not only on the manufacturing side, but now you've been doing farm shows for a long time. I mean, with that you can blend that and just keep bringing them to market?
Yeah, it's just building a bigger portfolio. we want to help farmers. We know not every product is a good fit for every farmer, but when you have a wide range of products to choose from, it's just a good place to be and to be able to offer your help and knowledge and really just help the farmer's bottom line.
So we've talked a little bit about this in the past. Sales is not really something you love. You would way rather be inventing or refining or manufacturing, something like that.
Yep, I'm definitely more of a trenches kind of guy and love working with the product. We farm, actively been farming now for about 5 years, and we've run.
Because you weren't busy enough before. You're like, you know what? Sure, I'll take over the farm.
That's probably the most rewarding part about this whole thing is just being able to work with the stuff that you make and actually use it, understand the problems that you have with it, and try and improve it. There's just certain things you're not gonna come up with a solution for everybody across the United States. There's certain things that work in certain areas, and there's certain things that don't. And we have products like that too.
Right.
But at least we're aware of it, and we're not trying to sell somebody that's going to be unhappy with our product down the road.
So one of the things that was cool is when we walked in here today, I got to see some of the products that we won't talk about that are coming, that are coming down the road. How much fun is that? Is that like where you get really excited? Because you are always like, you're never really excited, but when you start thinking about those products and testing those, you get really excited. And then I'm terrible at keeping secrets, so I'm surprised you showed that to me. But how do you keep this? I mean, I will, but like, you got to get excited about this. How do you keep this under wraps until you're ready to put it out there?
It's exciting, but it's stressful. You don't know how many to build ahead of time. You don't know running it on your planter. That thing we've been running for a couple years on my planter, and so far so good, but you're always going to uncover a few different things when you release it to the masses.
Right.
So there's always that anticipational anxiety that comes along.
Starts
with
building
releasing.
up. You're like, oh shit, we're going to put this out there.
Yeah. There's that.
Now we're going to have to figure it out.
Yep.
Right.
But we've got great support, and we always stand behind our products. So we're not afraid to bring new stuff to the market.
And your team has grown. I mean, it's not just you and Emily anymore. I mean, you've got a whole big team on both sides of not only First Manufacturing but Copperhead Ag. How do you build a team? What do you look for when you're building a team? Like, what's that like?
That's the tricky part. So far, we've just gotten lucky, but we've hired some good people. You can tell pretty quick if they're going to fit well with the group. And
is that the most important thing for you? Is how do they fit into this group?
Yeah, that and just the values and how they interact with customers, and just making sure that the customer comes first.
Right.
And taking care of everybody.
The team's the hardest part, for sure. That's what I've learned, is building a team you got to get a little bit lucky. It's hard to find people that will buy into what you're trying to do.
Right.
And you're trying to do so many different things. I would think that finding people that understand and can help grow in more than just one facet would be a little bit difficult. So of the three, manufacturing, farming, and I guess we'll call it inventing, which is your favorite?
They all work together.
I know, but you got to have a favorite, right?
Farming.
Yeah, for sure. Because we've talked about that for sure. You want to just get to the planter. We've had meetings where you're like, okay, I just want to go to the planter now.
Yeah,
is that the happy place?
That's the best place to be. We tried all kinds of different stuff this year on our planter, with the liquid fertilizer, both in furrow and banding it. Tried our new products. That was the fun part, and then actually seeing the benefits of it this year, especially in the drought conditions, where placing the liquid fertilizer next to the row paid off pretty substantially.
Because you only did corn this year too.
Correct. Yep.
Yeah, and it's looking pretty good.
It is. We're hanging in there. It's looking great.
Hanging in there.
Yep.
Yeah. So obviously all of this is going on, but at the same time, you're a pretty big family guy.
Mm-hmm.
How do you balance all that? How do you balance farming, manufacturing, inventing, Copperhead Ag, and then family, because you got 4 kids.
It's getting easier as they get older.
Right.
So yeah, like my second oldest, he worked with us all summer. He helped get the crop in the spring, and
He worked farm and first,
yep,
or
yep,
yeah,
correct. Yep, he came back from college, and we put him in the tillage tractor, and he
so
worked ahead
now
of us.
full circle,
You
where
bet.
you were tillage and your dad was planter. Now
Yep.
you're putting your kid, your tillage on planter.
Yep, and my brother helps through planting and harvest as well. So it's
You'd
just nice
have
to be out
There's
there with family.
No way you could do it all.
No, absolutely not.
Right. But
yeah, I mean, we keep a balance. My wife does a great job of making sure we at least sit down to supper a couple nights a week and get caught up and miss a few events, but for the most part, we attend all the events and quite frankly, we make sure we get to church together on Sunday and start the week off right.
That's awesome. And Emily, obviously, a huge part of all of the story.
Absolutely, yeah.
How'd you? I mean, she's way out of your league. How'd you pull that off?
I'm still trying to figure that out.
Every day.
Yeah, she holds it all together.
Yeah, I mean, and a lot to hold together. So one of the things that I've been asking kind of towards the end of this is, if you could look back and tell 20-year-old Kevin something, give him a piece of advice, which is probably something you probably told your son or your daughters, what would be the piece of advice? Like, 'cause you've a lot of adversity getting to this point.
Mm-hmm.
What's the one piece of advice that you'd be like, Kevin, this is what you need to know?
Don't be afraid to ask questions. I was always so intimidated for whatever reason by, people that were probably like where I am now, maybe.
Right.
But those people are very willing to talk you and help you, and there's so many people smarter than I am, and we lean on them all the time. So
Right.
my biggest advice would be is not be afraid to ask questions.
Don't be afraid to approach somebody. They'll probably
absolutely.
help you.
Absolutely. They're going to be more than willing to help.
That's one we haven't had yet. That's a great piece of advice. So last thing, and it's kind of been all over the place where I've asked this question, but you're on AgWarriors, weapon of choice. What's
My wife.
Your wife's your weapon of choice. You thought about this.
Yeah.
That's your weapon of choice. So if you need something, Emily will take care of it.
Yeah. She, like
That's
I said,
cool.
She holds everything together. And we've been working at it for almost 20 years.
Wow.
20 years, yeah. So
20 years. This year or next year?
Well, 20 years in first manufacturing is 20 years in business.
Right.
Yeah, we'll be married for 25 years here next May.
Wow. So 20 years, 2003. What was the open date? Is it is it coming up, or did you just have
I don't
it
know officially when we opened the doors.
to the garage?
Yeah, it was.
Right.
It was sometime in the summer. God, we had a smaller house out in California, and they weren't wired for machine shops necessarily.
Right.
So we had wires coming out of the box and up through the eaves and into the garage, and it was really something.
Do you ever? I mean, because it's one of the things I think that just as owners and entrepreneurs that we fail to do is we're trying to go somewhere, right? We're trying to do something. We're never really getting there, but sometimes we forget to look back. Do you ever look back throughout this whole journey and just be like, no shit, this is kind of cool? Or do you?
Oh, 100%. The biggest thing is just putting yourself in a position to take advantage of opportunities that are presented to you,
Right.
and just trying to rationally think through them. And that's why my wife is my voice of reason, but she
Weapon
also
of choice and voice of reason. Yeah.
yeah, and she's just solid person, good head on her shoulders, and just gets things done, checks them off the list.
So maybe the next podcast, maybe I need to have Emily on the podcast.
You can try.
Yeah, she probably won't come with me. Well, I appreciate Kevin. I mean, we've been doing business a long time, but I learned more today, I think, a little bit about your story and how this all came about. And I hope it's entertaining for farmers. I know that you certainly, the manufacturing you do is pretty incredible, and I think that story is incredible too. So
yeah, it's been a lot of fun. I wouldn't trade anything for the world. My biggest dream moving forward is to be able to help each one of my 4 kids start something of their own.
not necessarily this.
Not necessarily this.
Go do your own thing.
Yeah, start from nothing, and just see what you can do. It's been the most rewarding thing.
How are you going? Okay, so that's cool. So you're going to say, go start your own thing with nothing. How are you going to support them? What's your goal in supporting? Is it like lending them the money, or is it being there to talk them through things and say, go get it? What's your...
Probably all of the above.
All of the above.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yep. But making sure that the business idea is solid, and testing it and talking about it and talking about the what ifs.
Right.
You got to be willing to talk about failing in order to do this.
So that's, and your kids will be lucky. They've got you and Emily to kind of walk through a
whether or
business
not
plan.
they want to do it, I mean, that's fine. But
right. But you'll be there for them if they do.
Sure.
That's the biggest dream. Mm-hmm. That's cool. Man, I'm glad you came. I'm glad you agreed to sit down with me and do this, because I think that's a cool story, and I think there's some good advice there. So appreciate
cool.
it.
Yeah, thanks, Jim.